Rain pounded relentlessly against the kitchen glass while Carl Mlan watched his son silently nudge food around his plate. Owen barely ate, his 9-year-old gaze flicking again and again between his father and the vacant chair where Linda normally sat during dinner. "Dad," Owen murmured, almost afraid to be heard. "Can I ask you something kind of strange?" Carl placed his fork down and studied the worry etched across his son's face. Owen never spoke carelessly, he'd inherited that cautious nature from Carl himself. "Of course," Carl replied gently. "What's bothering you?" Owen hesitated before blurting it out. "Why does Mom change her clothes in the garage?" The question lingered between them, heavy and uncomfortable. A chill settled deep inside Carl's chest, but his expression remained composed. Years spent closing high-stakes corporate acquisitions had trained him well: never reveal surprise, never reveal fear. "What do you mean?" Carl asked evenly. Owen rushed forward, words tumbling out. "When she gets home from work, she doesn't come inside right away. She just sits in the car. I can see it from my bedroom window. She changes her shirt. Sometimes everything she's wearing. I've seen it happen every day this week." His voice wavered. Sometimes she cries first. She just stays there crying in the car. Then she wipes her face, changes clothes, and walks inside smiling like nothing happened." Carl reached across the table and clasped Owen's hand, even as his mind began breaking everything apart, replaying conversations, re-examining months of shared moments with his wife. "How long have you noticed this?" Carl asked quietly. "Maybe a couple of months," Owen said. "I thought it was strange, but I didn't want to say anything. But today, she was crying really hard. I got scared." Later that night, after Owen had gone to sleep, Carl sat alone in his home office. A glass of bourbon rested untouched beside him. Linda had returned an hour earlier, cheerful as ever, chatting about her shift at the hospital where she worked as a pediatric nurse. He had observed her closely, hair flawless, makeup pristine. But now, Owen's words replayed relentlessly in his mind. Carl opened his laptop and accessed their phone records. They shared a family plan, something Linda had once insisted on as proof of openness. He had never felt the need to look. Their 12-year marriage had been built on trust. As he scrolled through her call history, a pattern became impossible to ignore. One number appeared again and again, often during her lunch break or immediately after her shift ended. Some calls were brief. Others stretched past an hour. Carl typed quickly. A reverse lookup tied the number to a man named Gordon Mooney. The name meant nothing at first. But deeper digging revealed more. Gordon Mooney was a pharmaceutical sales representative who regularly visited hospitals in their region. Married. 2 children. His online presence was filled with smiling family photos and awards celebrating corporate success. Carl leaned back, jaw clenched. Confronting Linda now would be a mistake. It would give her time to spin explanations, to reshape the truth. No, he needed clarity. He needed the full picture before acting. The following morning, Carl kissed Linda goodbye at the front door like he always did. Instead of driving downtown to his office, he looped back and parked several blocks from their home. He waited. At exactly 4:47 p.m., Linda's silver Honda pulled into the driveway. Using a telephoto lens borrowed from his friend Marty Ferris, a private investigator who owed Carl a favor, he watched from a distance. Marty had shown him surveillance techniques over the years, knowledge Carl had never imagined using on his own marriage. Through the lens, Carl saw everything Owen had described. Linda sat frozen behind the wheel, her face buried in her hands. Her shoulders shook as she sobbed uncontrollably. Minutes passed before she straightened herself. Then, just as Owen had said, she reached into a shopping bag on the passenger seat, one Carl had never seen before, and pulled out a different blouse. Right there in the garage, she changed, stuffing the original top into the bag. Carl lowered the camera, his hands trembling. There was no denying it now. But Gordon Mooney remained a mystery, and Carl needed more than suspicion. He needed leverage. Over the next week, Carl uncovered everything. Gordon Mooney wasn't just another sales rep, he was a top performer at BioArmor Solutions, a company Carl's firm had once considered purchasing. Gordon managed 7 major hospitals and earned commissions well known within industry circles. His income exceeded $300,000 a year, funding a polished suburban life with his wife, Anna, and their 2 young daughters. But the affair wasn't Gordon's only secret. Through an insider at BioArmor, Carl learned Gordon had been manipulating sales reports, claiming credit for orders secured by other representatives. The scheme was subtle enough to stay hidden but serious enough to qualify as fraud. Gordon was stealing from his colleagues while preserving his golden reputation. One afternoon, Carl sat in a cafe across from BioArmor's headquarters, watching Gordon exit the building. The man was tall, confident, immaculately dressed, the kind of person who smiled effortlessly. Carl felt only disgust. This was the man who had been involved with his wife. The man who left her crying alone in their garage. The man who turned Carl's family into a lie. That night, Carl made his move. He placed a call to Bernard Swanson, CEO of BioArmor Solutions. Though the acquisition deal had fallen through, Carl and Bernard had formed a professional rapport. "Bernard, it's Carl Lan," he said. "I hope I'm not calling at a bad time." "Carl, good to hear from you," Bernard replied. "What's going on?" "I'm reaching out because I've uncovered information you may find important. It concerns one of your sales representatives, Gordon Mooney. I've identified evidence of commission fraud that could expose your company to significant risk." The call lasted half an hour. Carl detailed everything he had discovered and offered to provide documentation. With each revelation, Bernard's tone hardened. "I appreciate you bringing this forward," Bernard said finally. "Issues like this are unacceptable. I'll verify the information, of course, but if it checks out, there will be immediate action." "I understand," Carl said evenly. "I'll send the documentation tonight. But there's something else you should be aware of, Bernard. The reason I uncovered this isn't purely professional. Gordon Mooney has been involved with my wife." He paused briefly before continuing. "That said, the personal aspect doesn't change the facts. The fraud exists whether I'm part of the story or not. I wouldn't bring this to you unless it was legitimate." There was a moment of silence on the line. "I'm sorry you're dealing with that, Carl," Bernard replied at last. "But you're right, this is business. If he's been siphoning money from the company, his time here is finished." Carl still didn't confront Linda. Instead, he arranged a face-to-face meeting with Gordon. Using a prepaid phone, Carl sent a message posing as a prospective client interested in BioArmor's product line. Gordon, never one to miss a sales opportunity, agreed quickly. They chose a downtown bar. Carl arrived ahead of time, selecting a secluded booth that allowed him to monitor the entrance without being noticed. When Gordon finally walked in, relaxed, self-assured, completely unaware, Carl lifted a hand. The confusion that spread across Gordon's face when he recognized the man waiting for him was deeply satisfying. "Mr. Mooney," Carl said calmly. "Thanks for coming. I'm Carl Lan." The blood drained from Gordon's face. I didn't realize." "Sit," Carl said softly, his tone controlled but unmistakably firm. Gordon obeyed. "I'm not here to cause a scene," Carl continued. "I'm here to inform you that tomorrow morning, your position at BioArmor Solutions will be terminated. You've been manipulating sales figures for 8 months. Your CEO already has the proof, and legal action for fraud is on the table." Gordon's mouth moved, but no words came out. "How did you?" "I do this for a living," Carl interrupted. "I evaluate companies. Digging into individuals is easy by comparison." He leaned forward. "There's more. Your wife, Anna, doesn't yet know about the false reports. And she also doesn't know about your relationship with my wife. I suspect that information would make an already dire situation far worse." "Please," Gordon whispered, panic breaking through. "My children." "My child," Carl shot back coldly, "is 9 years old and has been watching his mother cry alone in our garage every day. Don't bring kids into this." Gordon swallowed hard. "What do you want from me?" "I want you to understand consequences," Carl said. "You're losing your job. Your reputation in this industry will be ruined. And when the truth reaches your wife, your family will likely fall apart as well." He stood. "I'm not demanding anything. I'm informing you that the life you built is finished." Carl paused, then added, "One last thing. If you ever reach out to Linda again, if you even consider it, I will make every detail of your fraud and your affair public. Your country club. Your children's school. Every professional contact you've ever had. Are we clear? Gordon nodded numbly, his face pale and hollow. That night, Carl finally faced Linda. After Owen was asleep, Carl placed a thick folder on the kitchen table between them. Phone records. Photos. Timelines. I know about Gordon Mooney, Carl said quietly. Linda's composure shattered. The smile she'd been forcing for months disappeared, replaced by raw panic. Carl, I'm so sorry. It was a mistake. It didn't mean anything. Stop, Carl said sharply. Don't cheapen this with empty phrases. He looked directly at her. Owen saw you crying in the garage. Our son has been watching you unravel day after day while you pretended everything was normal. Linda broke down completely, sobs echoing through the kitchen. Carl felt nothing. The woman sitting across from him felt unfamiliar, distant. It started 6 months ago, she admitted through tears. He made me feel noticed. I felt invisible here, like I only existed as a mother and a wife. It was wrong. I know that. I ended it weeks ago. I just didn't know how to tell you. You're correct about one thing, Carl replied evenly. It's over. He continued, voice steady. Gordon is being fired tomorrow. His wife will learn about the affair soon. And you and I are finished. No, Carl, please. We can work through this. Therapy, counseling, anything. What I need, Carl said, standing, is someone I can trust. That isn't you anymore. He took a breath. I've already hired a divorce attorney. You'll receive the papers next week. I want this handled calmly for Owen's sake, but I'll be seeking primary custody. You'll have weekends. You can't take my son away from me, Linda cried. I'm not taking him, Carl replied. I'm shielding him from the instability you created. The court will see the evidence. They'll see how this has affected him. I've documented everything. Linda collapsed into a chair as the truth settled in. Carl felt a cold sense of resolution, but also grief for the life that no longer existed. 3 months later, Carl sat in his attorney's office, signing the final paperwork. The divorce had proceeded smoothly. Linda didn't contest custody once she reviewed Carl's evidence and learned that Owen himself had expressed a desire to remain with his father. She received weekends, holidays were shared, and Carl ensured the financial settlement was fair despite everything. As for Gordon Mooney, his downfall had unfolded exactly as Carl anticipated. BioArmor terminated his employment and pursued fraud charges. Though the matter was settled privately, Gordon was forced to repay more than $80,000 in stolen commissions and was permanently shut out of the pharmaceutical industry. Anna filed for divorce within days of learning the truth. Gordon's online profile now listed his job as a used car salesman in another state. Carl's lawyer, Brett Newton, placed the completed documents into a folder. That's it, Brett said. You're officially divorced. How are you doing? Better than I thought I would, Carl admitted. And it was true. The pain had been intense at first, but knowing he'd acted decisively, without losing control, made the healing easier. He hadn't been powerless. He'd been deliberate. That evening, Carl picked Owen up from school. His son had been seeing a therapist and was adjusting well. Their bond had strengthened through honesty and shared time. As they drove home, Owen spoke. Dad, can I ask you something? Always. Are you sad about Mom? Carl considered his answer carefully. I'm sad about what we lost. I'm sad our family changed. But I'm not sad about protecting us. Sometimes doing the right thing hurts, but it still matters. Owen nodded slowly. You're really brave, Dad. Carl smiled and tousled his hair. So are you. As they pulled into the driveway, Carl felt something unfamiliar, calm. The garage stood empty where Linda's car one Saturday. It was a reminder of what was gone, but also of the honesty that had replaced it. He had been betrayed, but not destroyed. Linda would have to live with her choices. Gordon had lost everything through his own greed. Carl and Owen would move forward. Later that night, Carl stood in his study, city lights glowing beyond the window. His phone buzzed with a message from Marty Ferris. Sounds like everything worked out. Drinks this weekend? Carl smiled and typed back. Absolutely. My treat. He set the phone down, poured himself a bourbon, and finally took a sip. The future wasn't guaranteed, but it was his to shape. And that made all the difference.